Through her sleep, she heard her mother's insistent voice asking her to wake up. "Alice, get up. Can you hear me? You came home again in the early morning. Get up, I'm telling you." "Oh, Mom," Alice murmured sleepily and rolled over to the other side. "Why are you up so early, huh? Your father wants to talk to you." "What trouble have you caused this time?" "Get up," I said. "I haven't caused any trouble." "Where did you get that idea?" "From the fact that the police called him this morning. He got so angry that, you know what he's like when he's like that. It's better not to argue with him." "Oh, all right, I'll come right now." Molly looked at her sleeping daughter and remembered how Alice was as a child, such a little beautiful blonde girl, very obedient, affectionate. They lived in a rented apartment back then with her husband, and she thought they were the happiest people on earth. But everything changed when Robert and his friend Rick decided to start their own business. They soon bought an apartment, then another one. Then her husband started changing cars, and now they had about 7 of them in a garage in a country house. There was enough money. Now whatever anyone wanted, they could buy it, find it. Only somehow the 3 of them grew apart. While Robert was working, Molly helped him, and Alice grew up surrounded by nannies, caregivers. And now, when everything seemed to be fine, their daughter started rebelling. She got strange friends, with whom she spent nights partying and riding motorcycles. She hardly talked to anyone at home, and when she did, it was just to sleep in her room. And in the evenings, she went back to her friends. "Alice, this is unacceptable. How are you behaving? You dropped out of college. If you don't study, you'll just be expelled. Well, I can live without college. And how? Tell me, how? Will you work as a salesperson or a cleaner?" "Yes, more likely a cleaner, because a salesperson should have some education nowadays. And what about you?" "Mom, why are you picking on me? What do you all want from me? I'll figure out my life on my own somehow, and you'd better keep an eye on my daddy. He's quite the wanderer." "Alice, what are you talking about? What are you saying anyway?" "What am I saying? While you're sitting here at home, doing what he tells you, raising your daughter, he's off with his young and beautiful mistress." "Look, Mom, life is so unfair. You and Dad started from the bottom when he wasn't famous or wealthy, when besides you he was nobody to anyone. And now he's achieved everything, and there are these young bimbos swirling around him, wanting money, and our dad is ready to give it to them." "Alice, you can't talk like that." "Have you seen him with someone?" "No, but my friends have." Molly had long suspected that her husband had taken a mistress. In terms of love, she hadn't wanted anything for a long time and understood that it was necessary for his wife, and he takes on the side what she can't give him. "All right, Alice, this really doesn't concern you. We'll handle it ourselves. You better pay attention to your own life. What's going on with you now? You're hanging out with a bad crowd, not staying at home overnight. This isn't right." "Oh, Mom, my friends are normal. I'm having a great time with them. We're having fun. Tell Dad that." Molly remembered this conversation she had with her daughter a month ago. And then the police called Robert in the morning. They told him something that made him very angry. He asked to wake up Alice because he wanted to talk to her seriously. But without waiting, he left for some business meeting. Half an hour later, the phone rang, and a few minutes later, 2 policemen were standing in the house. "Hello, does Alice live here?" "Yes." "What happened? And who are you?" "I'm her mother, Molly." "What happened?" "Yesterday your daughter hit a pedestrian at 4:30 in the morning and fled in an unknown direction. So we're after her." "Where is she?" "She's at home, still asleep. Wake her up, she needs to come with us." Molly went to wake up her daughter, barely holding back tears. "Honey, wake up, the police are here for you." "Did you do something after all? Did you hit someone at a crosswalk?" Alice woke up and sat on the bed. She looked at her mom with fear and said, "I don't remember." "What do you mean? Are you on drugs?" "No, I just drank some beer yesterday and apparently got very drunk. You know I don't drink, but my friends persuaded me to try. So I guess I got carried away." "Mom, what do we do now?" "What do we do? Wash up, get ready, and go with them. And I'll get in touch with your father." "Mom, I'm scared." "Don't be afraid. Your father will sort everything out." When Alice left with the police, Molly called Robert to tell him everything, but he didn't answer. So she decided to go to his office herself so they could all go to the police together. At the office, she was told that Robert was in a meeting and would be free in 15 minutes. She sat waiting in the reception area, constantly checking the time, and those 15 minutes had never seemed so long to her. She was very worried about her daughter. How was she doing there? She had never been to a police station in her life. The door to the office opened and people started coming out. The last one was her husband, talking on the phone with someone. He saw Molly, approached her. "Well, shall we go?" "I already know what our daughter did. We'll figure out how to get her out." "I already know our daughter is at the police station. Well, let's figure out how to get her out of there." "Robert, is the person she hit alive at least?" "Yes, he's in the hospital. But we're lucky, the guy is healthy and strong. He only broke his arm and 2 ribs. But the doctors say it's nothing serious. So, let's go to the police now and then to the hospital to see the victim." The police chief, who knew Robert very well, said that if they didn't want a criminal case opened, it would be better for them to go to the victim. Talk to him and have him withdraw the complaint. It all depends on you now. Tell him the girl is young. It happened by accident. She got very scared. Of course, offer him money for physical and emotional damage. All right. So if we agree with him and he withdraws the complaint, will Alice be released? Yes, then no criminal case will be opened and your daughter will be free. But I asked you, talk to her. She was just lucky, but things could have ended very differently with a tragic outcome, as often happens with us. Thank you. We'll go to the hospital then. In the reception area, the doctor explained that Stefan had a broken right arm and some damaged ribs. Thank God, no concussion, no internal injuries. The guy is as healthy as a bull. Well, and in general, he's sturdy, he has excellent health. He's in room 7, so you can go talk to him. They entered the room and saw a young, healthy, rosy-cheeked guy lying on the bed. He was flipping through some magazine, and when the visitors came in, he looked at them in surprise. "Hello, young man," Robert began. "We came to talk to you. How are you feeling?" "Fine," he smiled. "Just a few scratches, nothing I'm not used to. I got gored by a bull back in the village. That was worse. This is nothing. What's your name, young man?" "Stefan." "Well, Stefan, we're here about this matter. You see, the reason you're in the hospital right now is because of my daughter. Understand, she's very young, foolish, got scared yesterday and left you like that. Let's think about what we can do. We wouldn't want to ruin a young girl's life. So what do you want from me? You want me to withdraw the complaint. That would be absolutely splendid. Of course, we'll compensate you and do whatever you want. Within reason, of course. I'm okay with that. But I need your help. I came here from the village. I need to buy some parts for my tractor, and now this happened. So, I can't go home and I have nowhere to stay here. Can you take care of me until I recover completely? And also, while I was apparently unconscious, someone stole my money. So, if you return the amount I had, I'll be very grateful to you." "Yes, we can arrange that. So, if I understand correctly, you need to recover a bit, then you buy the parts and go back to the village, right? Did I get everything right?" Yes, you got it all right." Molly looked at the guy and thought that she hadn't seen such honest and straightforward people in a long time. He didn't beat around the bush, didn't haggle, said everything clearly and simply. She liked that. "Stefan, I have a question for you." "Yes, I'm listening. Could you please tell me what you were doing on the road at that time?" "It was very late. Well, I arrived in the evening. Everything was closed, so I decided to walk around the city until morning. And then this happened. Well, our hotel is open 24/7. You could have rented a room." "I could have, of course. But I'm telling you again, I only had enough money for the parts, and your hotel costs 5 times more. So, I decided to spend the time like this. And what's more, I wanted to enjoy the night city. Time would pass quickly that way." Leaving the hospital, they went back to the police station to meet with the chief again. He listened to them and said he would handle everything, and in the evening they would be able to pick up Alice. "Is it possible earlier?" "I'll do what I can. They'll call you." Molly came home, feeling restless. Although she was angry with Alice, she couldn't help worrying about her daughter sitting in the police station. Then she remembered the morning conversation. She decided to prepare the room for the young man who was supposed to come from the hospital tonight. Stefan arrived before Robert and Alice. Molly greeted him and led him to the room. "Here, I think you'll be comfortable here. You can go out there and breathe some fresh air. It'll be good for you right now." "Yeah, really, in the city, there's never enough air for me. It feels like I'm suffocating. We have plenty of space in the village. That's where I was born and raised. And life here is unbearable for me. I don't understand how you can live in these boxes. As far as I understand, not everyone can afford such a house." "Yes, Stefan, not everyone. We used to live in rental apartments. And back then, Alice was very young. It was hard, yes. My husband only recently built this house for us to live in our old age. It's very nice here. Well, yes, compared to the city, it's nice here. I have the biggest house in my village, built it myself. I thought I'd live there with my parents, brothers and sisters. But everyone wanted their own house too. So now I'm alone in this huge house. My father says I need to get married, but I don't want to yet. I guess I haven't fallen in love with anyone yet. He says, but everything has its time. How old are you, Stefan?" "I'm 28 already. I have a house and a good job, so I'm the most eligible bachelor in our village." Molly smiled. The guy was so open, so funny, she had to hide her smile all the time, because she realized she might offend the young man. "Well, make yourself at home. I'll go to the kitchen. Dinner will be ready soon, and then we can talk." Robert and Alice arrived in the evening, just as Molly finished preparing dinner. She kissed her daughter and told her to go wash her hands, then hurried to set the table. When Alice entered, she saw not only her mom and dad, but also some guy she didn't recognize. She realized it was the person she had hit. "What's he doing here? Wasn't he supposed to go home?" Alice exclaimed. "Alice," her mom scolded, "what's gotten into you? Please, be polite. Besides, you're the one at fault in this situation. Stefan, meet our daughter, who is not only inattentive and rude, but also as stupid as a cork, because she doesn't understand that you can't speed on the roads late at night. And drunk on top of that. Dad, how was I supposed to know this miracle guy would show up on the pedestrian crossing? Normal people are already asleep at home and having sweet dreams, so you're not normal either, since you're out drunk wandering the streets at such a late hour," Stefan said quietly. "And it's none of your business." Alice retorted, "Where did they let you out from? The zoo? If you don't know how to cross the road properly, then don't go where you don't belong. I wonder, how do you cross at a crosswalk correctly? With a hop or a squat? I don't get it." "If you're so smart, then explain. You came out of nowhere, speeding like crazy, and you're still in one piece. It's unclear. Is there cotton wool instead of brains in your head? Shut up. Do you know who you're talking to? You're in my house, and you dare talk to me like that?" Robert reddened and shouted, "Alice, shut up and go to your room. I'm ashamed of you. Turns out I raised such a daughter, dumb and shameless. You make a mess of yourself and then look for someone else to blame. Now, quickly go to your room or I won't be responsible for myself." Alice glared hatefully at everyone, tossed the napkin and got up. "Oh, please, like I really need this. Sitting with this scum," and at the same table she turned and left. Robert looked at Stefan and said, "Don't mind her, young man. That's the youth nowadays. And unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about it." "Yes, I understand perfectly. If she came to us for a month for re-education, so to speak, she'd straighten up quickly. We put them in their place like that in our village." Robert looked thoughtfully at Stefan and Molly shuddered. She knew they'd look from her house. He admitted he had come up with something at that moment. After dinner, Robert went up to Alice's room. She was lying on the bed, listening to music. He sat down next to her, turned off her player. "Listen to me carefully. After what you did, you are grounded, no leaving the house. And I'll come up with your punishment myself." Alice silently looked at her husband. She knew that in some cases it was best to keep quiet and not argue, because the consequences for her could be very unpleasant. Her father became very strict in such cases. So she decided wisely to remain silent. Stefan was recovering very quickly. When he no longer needed crutches and could walk on his own, Robert invited him to his office for a talk. "Stefan, I don't know how to tell you this, but listen. I have a business proposal for you. I offer you to marry my daughter. Understand correctly, for the purpose of re-education. You see what the city is doing to her, and I know it will only get worse from here. Unfortunately, I can't just send her to the village. But if I give her away, I can't do anything. I can't just send her to the village. But if I give her away in marriage, she'll go there like a little angel. So think about it. I really hope you'll help me." "Yes, but, Robert, she won't marry me against her will. She's got a strong character. That's my problem. You just tell me how? Do you agree?" "Yes, no problem. I'll do it if necessary. Don't hurt her. However angry I may be with her, she's still my daughter. So you know my connections. If you hurt her, you'll answer for it." "Yes, I understand, Robert." "And do I look like someone who would hurt her?" "I definitely won't, but I'll try to re-educate her." During dinner, when everyone sat down at the table, Robert said, "Alice, you're marrying Stefan. The registration is the day after tomorrow, and then you're leaving for the village." Molly looked at her husband in astonishment, unable to believe her ears. She just couldn't understand how her husband could give away his daughter to this barely known guy. Alice immediately shouted, "Never. Dad, I will never marry this village bumpkin." "Have you lost your mind? What era are we living in anyway? I'm not some serf or slave. You can't just decide my life like this. You decided your life yourself, Alice, when you hit someone and left the scene. Besides, you were drunk. You could have faced up to 7 years in prison. That's why you were released under these conditions. You refuse? Well, okay, they'll come for you tomorrow, and you'll be back in the police station. But then I won't be able to do anything for you. Well, except maybe send some care packages to the prison." Alice turned pale and fell silent. Then she looked at her father with anguish and asked, "Dad, is there really nothing else that can be done?" "No, honey, there isn't. Your behavior has crossed all boundaries. You didn't listen to any of us. You lived however you pleased. So everything that's happening now is thanks to you. But Dad, you saw, I've been at home all these days. I haven't gone anywhere. Yes, and I was actually thinking of going back to college to study like you wanted. Yes, I see, you suddenly got smart. Right. Only it's too late. You could have finished college earlier. But you did everything to get expelled. So it's too late to change anything now. I told you, either marriage or prison." Alice silently got up and left the table. Stefan also stood up and left, leaving Robert and Molly alone. "What are you doing?" "She's our daughter. You can't do this, you know. You can't. And what do you suggest? Forget everything? Close our eyes to what happened again?" "Oh, it won't work like that, Molly. It won't work. She'll go back to her old ways. She'll wander until morning again. Something else will happen. Only, you see, it might be too late by then, and I'm sure you don't want to lose our daughter, right? Of course not. But this marriage, it's awful. You don't even really know this guy. It's not right, Robert. You're wrong. I know everything about him. I've done my research on him. He's a good guy, the kind of son-in-law one can only dream of. It's a shame it's all untrue, just to get our beloved daughter back on track. I don't understand." "So the marriage will be fake?" "Yes, something like that. I just want her to come to her senses. We probably won't be able to do it ourselves, so it's a secret. Don't let it slip. Because if anything happens to her later, it'll be on your conscience." "Okay, Robert, I won't say anything. That's great. She's a smart girl. She's just lost her way in life a bit, but we'll put her back on the right track." Alice lay in her room and cried. She couldn't imagine that her father was going to marry her off to this country bumpkin who was unattractive, uninteresting, and worked as a tractor driver. She remembered her boyfriend Roma, whom she was friends with and in love with. That's who she would marry. True, he hadn't called her after that incident, but it was understandable. He knows she's not in the mood for him now. So what should I do? Alice thought. Maybe there's some way out. But she couldn't find a way out. As promised, her father took them to the registry office 2 days later, where Alice and Stefan got married. Alice was in a daze. She still doubted what was happening until the end. She thought her father was just trying to scare her. And when they reached the registry office, he would say he was joking, that his daughter deserved better, and take her home. But nothing happened. They were heading back home to pack her things and leave for the village. At home, her mom kissed Alice and handed her a purse. Stefan took her bag and headed for the door. "Mom, but there's only one bag here. Where are the other 3? "You won't need them. It's the village, not a fashion show. So if anything, we'll buy them there." "What do you mean, we'll buy? I have everything I need. It's better to take my things so we don't have to buy anything there. Besides, I doubt they have anything I would wear. They do, for example, rubber boots. We can't do without them. And I see you don't have those in your wardrobe." "No, of course not. Why would I need them? Besides, they don't even sell them where we're from." "Well, they do here. And the first thing we'll do when we arrive is buy a pair of boots." They spent 5 hours shaking on the bus. The girl had never traveled this far before. Moreover, in such transportation as a bus, she was very tired. Her whole body ached. She felt unpleasant, sticky from sweat. It was also stuffy, and she felt nauseous all the time. "Are we there yet? This is unbearable. By the way, do you have a shower there?" "Well, we have a bathhouse, but we won't be heating it today. We're both tired." "If you want, you can heat it yourself." "Then where can I wash?" "Well, you'll heat some water for yourself and pour it over yourself from a bucket." "Oh my God. And do you have electricity at all?" "Well, of course we do. We have a big village, so we have everything. They even brought water to the house. It's just that there's no shower." Alice looked at Stefan and thought about how when they arrived, she would make his life so miserable that he would send her back to her parents on the second day. Yes, that's what she needed. And everything will be in compliance. She married him, and if she's sent back home, that's his problem. She clenched her fists vindicatively and smiled. Stefan saw what was going on with her and understood what she was thinking. Robert had given him clear instructions regarding his daughter. So, he knew how to deal with her. During the time he lived in their house, he had observed Alice a little. And the first thing that caught his eye was that she was very beautiful. There were no such beauties in their village. However, her character spoiled everything. She was a bit dull and reminded him of the time when he was 13 and going through puberty himself. However, his father quickly steered him in the right direction, so there were no problems. But with her, he would have to try. Stefan was a little sad that Alice didn't look at him differently, that they could never truly be husband and wife. But it was understandable. She was so refined and village life was not for her, and he couldn't live any other way. His life was in his native village and the city was unacceptable. "Well, here we are," he cheerfully announced to the dozing Alice. She jumped, looked at him angrily, and started looking around. My goodness, what a dump. How do people live here anyway? They walked along the path and Alice glanced fearfully at the cows walking in a herd along the road. The air smelled deliciously of fresh milk, and Stefan breathed it in with pleasure. Alice, on the other hand, wrinkled her nose, not understanding what smelled so good. Where are they coming from? And there are so many of them. They are coming home from the pasture. Now their owner will call them home, feed them, give them water, and then milk them. What will she do? Well, milk them. Don't you know what milking a cow is? No, I don't. Where we are from, you see, cows are everywhere. You just grab them and milk them. That's it. I never learned how. Yeah. I noticed you have such cows on your roads. They walk on the roads and run over pedestrians, and then they don't have the guts to stop and help the victim. Oh, come on, victim. You can't kill you with anything healthy as a bowl and you're still whining. I'm not whining, I'm just fair. And I don't understand how you can behave like that. And before you get offended like that, you should thank God that I'm the one who got you, not someone else. And it could have ended even worse, with a fatal outcome. Alice paled. This bumpkin was right. She was really lucky that it all ended like this. It could have been worse. Soon they approached a beautiful wooden house. Well, here we are. This is where I live, and now we'll be living together. Do you live alone in this house? Yes, I built it for everyone. We have a big family, but it turned out that everyone is already married and wants to live separately. Well, and our parents stayed in their old house. So sooner or later, I'll start a family too. And what? It'll be better for everyone. Well, what are you waiting for? Come on in. The yard was very large and well kept. They stepped onto the porch and Stefan opened the door. The hallway was bright, clean, and cozy. It smelled of wood and something else. He walked into the living room and put Alice's bag on the floor. Then he turned on the light and went to the kitchen. I don't know about you, but I'm very hungry. So, change your clothes and prepare something. Mom left groceries in the fridge. By the way, can you make pancakes? Alice looked at Stefan in astonishment, not understanding what he was talking about. How do I cook? What do I cook? At home, her mother always cooked, and when Alice asked her what she used to make this or that dish, her mother would tell her, but she wasn't interested and she would interrupt the conversation. And her mother would smile and say that when she got married, she would learn everything herself. But I don't know how to cook and I've never even tried. So what? Do you think you're going to wait for me to come home from work and feed you? No way, darling. Let's learn. Besides, you always made it clear to me that you're already an adult, an independent person. For the first time, don't complicate things. Just fry us some eggs with sausage and make tea. We'll eat and go to sleep because we need to milk the cow, then put her out to pasture, and then clean up the barn. And then you'll feed the chickens and geese. The tomatoes in the garden have completely overgrown while I was away, so you'll need to weed them. Well, I think that's all for tomorrow. Can you handle it? Are you serious? I can't even do half of those things, so this isn't for me. What can you do then? You don't even have a profession. You couldn't even finish your studies. So if you can't use your head, use your hands. But, Stefan, I don't even know how to milk a cow. It's okay. Come, I'll show you. By the way, I said you need to change your clothes. Let's hurry. Can you hear her mooing? She needs to be milked already. Alice took the bag and shuffled into the room. The house was clean and cozy everywhere, but she didn't pay attention. She felt scared, wanting to go home to her parents, and she realized how good it had been there. She would have gone back to college, studied, and never again upset them with her behavior. But now, everything. Now she's in the village with her husband, and she needs to milk cows. The alarm clock rang at 5:30 in the morning. Alice heard its melody, but she couldn't open her eyes because she couldn't manage it. Stefan entered the room and said, Alice, get up, let's go. I'll show you how to milk Berenka again. And I need to go, or I'll be late. Just a little bit more, just a little bit. Can I get up later? And you go. Something cold spilled on her face, and she jumped up with a scream. Are you crazy? Why did you pour water on the bed? So you'd get up. I told you I'm late. By the way, it's going to be hot today, so hang out the laundry to dry. If you don't do that, you'll sleep on wet sheets tonight. She got up and followed him to the barn. He showed her how to milk again, and she sat on a small stool, took a bucket, and began to try to milk the cow. The cow stood silently, chewing grass, then raised its leg and kicked Alice, causing her to fall off the stool, and the bucket of milk flew in the other direction. Stefan first helped Alice up, then put the stool back. Cows don't like it when you touch their udder. Don't do it. Just take it as I showed you. Start milking, otherwise she'll keep hitting you. Does it hurt? Tears streamed from Alice's eyes, but she didn't show it, just shook her head. She sat down again and started milking the cow. She succeeded. Stefan smiled and thought that the city girl was learning very quickly. Then they chased her out of the barn together and went back to the yard. Look right ahead. Go. The shepherd is waiting for you at the end of the street. He's gathering all the cows and driving them to pasture. So hurry up. Alice walked along the road and saw how women and girls were looking at her with curiosity. There were no men in sight. Apparently they had gone to work. She tried not to show any signs of weakness and proudly walked alongside Berenka. When she got home, the first thing she did was take out the bedding to dry. Then she went to the kitchen, washed the dishes and floors. When the kitchen sparkled, she decided to go to the garden, remembering what Stefan had told her yesterday. The tomatoes had indeed overgrown. Here, she understood a little of what to do because in childhood, she often visited her grandmother's country house and helped her weed the strawberries. The sun was already high in the sky, but Alice stubbornly fought with the weeds. She went back to the kitchen, filled a jar with water so she wouldn't have to run back and forth, and went back to weeding. Of course, her grandmother's strawberry patch was incomparable to what she thought were hectares at Stefan's place. Pulling out the weeds, she thought about wanting to prove to herself, first and foremost, that she could do something in this life. When the cow hit her in the morning and she fell into the manure, she realized that if she didn't learn something, she would spend her whole life in the muck. Then her thoughts turned to Stefan. He spoke little but did a lot. Everything came quickly and smoothly to him. She also noticed his hands. His fingers were long and beautiful, but his hand was very strong and masculine, and more often in her mind arose the desire for those hands to embrace her. Yes, and he was very handsome. She started to like him. Besides, she saw that he was very educated. It was clear that he read a lot, and he also told her that he was interested in space. Lost in her thoughts, Alice didn't notice how evening came. She was brought back to her senses by Berenka, who stood near the barn and moved. Alice realized with horror that she hadn't cleaned the barn yet and rushed there. "Just wait, I'll clean everything up now." She tidied up, put hay and feed in the trough, and poured water. Berenka went into the barn and started eating. Alice sighed and began the most important task, milking, but everything went smoothly. At first, Berenka tensed up, but then everything went smoothly and the cow was milked. Alice stroked her, took the bucket of milk and went into the house. Just then, Stefan arrived. He looked at Alice, then at the bucket and smiled. "Looks like you did it," he said. "Yes, we got along. Found a common language with Berenka, so to speak." Stefan smiled again and took the bucket from Alice. At that moment, she felt her temperature rise. For some reason, she had always felt it since childhood. Alice sat down on the porch and closed her eyes, seeing flashes of fire in front of her eyes, and it became clear that her temperature was very high. She began to drift into unconsciousness when she felt a cool hand on her forehead. As if from a distance, she heard a voice. "Alice, what's wrong with you?" Stefan sounded worried. Apparently, his wife had been in the garden all day. Yes, he himself saw as he passed by that she had cleaned up the entire garden. At the same time, she got sunburned. Her skin was dark raspberry colored, and apparently that's why her temperature had risen. He picked her up and carried her home. He treated her the way his mother used to in such cases when he was a child, and soon Alice opened her eyes. "Are you feeling better?" She nodded. Then he couldn't resist, leaned down and kissed her. A month passed. Alice coped well with the chores and eagerly awaited her husband, whom she was crazy about. She couldn't even believe that she could fall in love like this. They were perfect for each other. Seeing that he would come soon, she started setting the table to serve everything on time. Suddenly, she heard some noise at the gate. Looking out the window, she saw her father's car. At that moment, Stefan returned from work. They shook hands and went into the house. Alice quickly set another place at the table, double-checked everything to make sure it was perfect, and waited for the men. When Robert entered the house, he couldn't believe his eyes, cause his daughter was standing in the kitchen wearing an apron and smiling sweetly. Her hair was nicely done, her face was not made up, but she looked so beautiful that he couldn't help but admire her. "Hello, Dad." She approached him and hugged him, then turned to her husband and greeted him with a radiant smile. "All right, let's sit at the table or everything will get cold. But first, wash your hands." Stefan showed Dad where he can do that. They sat at the table, had dinner, and chatted. Robert came to take his daughter back. He understood that she had learned a lot in a month. But then he realized that she not only understood everything, but also became a wonderful, loving wife and an excellent homemaker. He didn't just not expect this, he was in complete shock. At first, when he saw her, he thought Stefan had gone too far. He even carefully examined his daughter, trying to find traces of bruises. Robert tried not to show anything, to behave as usual, but his heart ached for his daughter. Because a person can't change so much in just 1 month. Or can they? He watched his daughter, and when she turned her gaze to Stefan, He understood that she had finally fallen in love with this simpleton, this country boy. What did she call him again? And Robert smiled. He felt relieved immediately. He wanted to hug his son-in-law and he had to hold himself back. When Alice got up and went to milk the cow, Robert nearly fell off his chair. He turned to Stefan. Robert remembered perfectly well that they only had a deal. Wow, and what now? Stefan smiled. I hope a son or daughter will be born. Better a daughter, so she'll be as beautiful as her mom. And then maybe a son. Robert sighed. You know what? Now I think I'm definitely at peace with my daughter.